Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're reviewing the Horus Heresy Primarch series novel, Rogal Dorn, the Emperor's Crusader, by author Gav Thorpe. As always, the review will be spoiler free, followed by a little spoiler reaction talk at the end. A few points that stood out for me that I'd like to discuss with those that have already read the book. However, with that said, let's waste no more time and jump straight in by checking out the synopsis off the back of the book. As the Great Crusade enters its 6th decade, the fleets and armies of the Emperor spear out into the galaxy to bring the Imperial truth to thousands of worlds. Expansion has been swift, but now must be tempered with consolidation. Even so, the Emperor demands that the boundaries of the Imperium be pushed further into the unknown. The Master of Mankind tasks 4 Primarchs with the dangerous mission of securing the worlds of the Occluder Noctis, hundreds of star systems on the far side of the northern major warp storm, whose warp-churning presence casts a shadow on the guiding light of the Astronomicon, and blinds even the Emperor's psychic sight. Rogal Dorn leads his Imperial fists directly into the heart of this cosmic twilight. Isolated, battling a foe the likes of which nobody has encountered before, Dorn must use all of his strategic genius and irresistible will to conquer the darkness, in the name of the Emperor. So, Rogal Dorn's Primarch novel. It definitely feels like this one has been a long time coming. The plot, as the synopsis states, definitely sounds intriguing on the face of it. The Imperium advancing into the area of the galaxy north of the northern major warp storm, which I don't think it takes a spoiler warning to say we know as the Eye of Terror. I'd never really considered the regions of space beyond it to be difficult to navigate before. But now when thinking about it, of course it does make sense. The Eye of Terror was the Great Rift before we got the Great Rift, so the premise of this one immediately had me invested. Something a little different to your standard Crusade era campaign. And the story for its part does do a good job of showing that and bringing it to life, giving a little more explanation and insight into the ways of the Astronomicon. There's nothing earth-shattering or major revealed, but it's definitely interesting in how the Imperium goes about this campaign. You see the great deal of thought that goes into it, and even Rogal having to face the fact of thinking outside the box, something that we most likely wouldn't see again until the Siege of Terra. Now, perhaps the biggest thing about this story on first glance, the standout mention of the synopsis, is the assignment of 4 Primarchs being involved in the campaign. The prospect of 4 of the brothers butting heads and egos in the name of their father. And well, as you would expect with the Primarchs, there definitely is of course some of that involved. Without revealing who the brothers are that join Rogal on the campaign, my eyes did light up at a couple of them when revealed, immediately salivating on the clashes and arguments that surely was going to come, in particular with one of those names, and I'm happy to say it doesn't disappoint. As for Rogal's characterization himself, it feels on point as well, with Rogal as you'd expect him to be, how he always is, duty first and always. And despite the luxury we've had with the Siege of Terra, in seeing Rogal interacting with his brothers so much, this brings an interesting change, in it being back during the Great Crusade, when brother fighting brother was really an impossibility. However, unfortunately the interactions are limited to a few occasions, so they're not really given the time for any truly meaningful conversations. There is one interaction which helps add a little depth and poignancy to future events, but I just wish it had been a little more, that this relationship was given a little more spotlight and time for us to see. Again, this relationship in particular wasn't something I'd remotely contemplated before, but in having it referenced and shown here, it left me wishing there was more of it. I could also say the same for one of those clash of egos when it does come along. You feel like, oh snap, this is it. It is going down. However, it doesn't quite go to the place you think it would given the characters involved. I was just left wishing it had been pushed a little bit further. Overall, with any Primarch interactions, they're always the highlight of the story, but I'm just not necessarily sure it really revealed anything new to me about Rogal in this case. And maybe that's the best explanation of the story for me as a whole. It most definitely feels like an Imperial Fist story, just not necessarily a deep dive into Rogal Dorn like I was expecting. You see just as much of the Legion as you do the Primarch. While the story revolves around him, the cast of the Legion are equally front and centre. If you love the Imperial Fists, you are going to love this. Absolutely no doubt about it. This is the Imperial Fists in their prime, going to war as they do best, even being forced a little out of their comfort zone. You get the best of the Legion and their nature. You see more of the Praetorian as a commander we will all come to love. And in a way, it feels like the perfect companion to the Siege of Terror to come. There's a couple of great lines in here that really made me pop, just in Rogal's dour, no-nonsense manner. However, if you're hoping for a more personal introspective into Rogal himself, I'm not sure you're going to get it with this one. At least I personally didn't. I've gone in and come out the other side with the same perception of Rogal as I had before, which of course is good. It's just I don't think I've learned anything like I was hoping to. Overall, like I said, if Rogal's your guy and the Imperial Fists are one of your favourite legions, this will most likely be a 5 out of 5 blessed by the Emperor read. It's a straight up Imperial Fist campaign with some intriguing twists and turns. Combined with some Primarch appearances, what's not to love? You will absolutely love it. And to be clear, I most likely wouldn't have the Imperial Fists within my top 5 favourite legions, so that gives you an idea of where my mindset is. So if the Imperial Fists aren't necessarily your number 1 legion, I'd say with this read you'd land closer to a 3 out of 5. It's a good, solid, Great Crusade era read with some nice Primarch interactions. I personally was just hoping for a little more insight and time into Rogal himself, gaining a little more insight into his relationship with his brothers, and particularly his father. For all that Rogal is his father's Praetorian, we really know and have seen little of their relationship so far. And maybe wrongly, but I was just hoping to get a little more insight about it here. However, overall, like I said, either way you are absolutely going to enjoy the read no matter what. Anytime you get some Rogal Dorn in a story, it is a treat. And this is no different. How much you will enjoy it though will most likely depend on just how much you love his legion. But okay, that's it for the spoiler-free review. Now just a little spoiler discussion on some talking points for those that have already read it. If you haven't, make sure to switch off now so you don't spoil the read for yourself. Now when I saw the other 3 Primarchs involved in the campaign, like I said, my eyes lit up. Horus, Fulgrim and the Lion. I don't know about anyone else, but when you see the Lion involved in a campaign, with his brothers, you immediately look forward to the inevitable clashes. And of course on cue they came here. Now I will say the Lion at first felt a little out of character for me. A bit too emotional against his cold exterior that I'm used to seeing. And I was a little surprised by this, and it took a little getting used to for the first few pages. However, I think the reason for it was as it was told to us. This was a Lionel Johnson very new to the Great Crusade. A Lionel Johnson still trying to find his place amongst his brothers. So I think this lion was very much intentional. This wasn't supposed to feel like the lion we see in, say, the Unremembered Empire series, for example. At least that was my interpretation coming away. And when the tension with Rogal finally built up to that one way to settle the dispute, I must admit, for one glorious second, I thought we were going to see the lion dueling Rogal Dorn. Oh, my heart skipped a beat in that moment. I really thought that was going to be something else. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be, and in reality that does make sense. A duel against Rogal and the lion would have been far too major. Something within the lore we should have undoubtedly heard of before. If we had have seen that, however, I will tell you this would have been an undoubted 5 out of 5 no matter who you are. That's probably 2 of the coldest dueling Primarchs around going face to face. What a prospect that would have been. The duel we did get though itself was good, and I found it refreshing for the Dark Angel to get the win over the expected Imperial Fist. My mind naturally went to Sigismund, but with it so early in the Crusade he hadn't reached that part in his career yet. Whenever Sigismund steps up to the duel line, you just know he's coming away with the victory. So it was nice to see another member of the Legion taking it on this time. Now, as for the other Primarchs, Horus once more makes an appearance in that senior brother mould. And I have to say the recent Primarch novels have done a really good job at this, showcasing Horus as the Lupercal that was, showing him as the brother the rest all look up to. It's really reaffirming why he was the only choice for War Master. I don't know if it's coincidence or intentional, but Mortarian's novel and now Dawn's have both shown a great Horus, really placing him in that senior brother position. Before, when we'd genuinely ask why was Horus War Master, now it really feels like there's no debate about it. It was the third brother for me though in Fulgrim who really came across the best. You felt the genuine warmth for his brothers, which was a nice throwback we rarely get to see for the Phoenician these days, mediating the brothers before Horus's ultimate arrival, which fits as Fulgrim was one of the earlier found Primarchs, so in that situation you would expect him to take that role. It's just one we don't often get to see. And I felt like it did a great job of adding that extra bit of emotion to the eventual confrontation between him and Rogal. A rare glimpse of warmth from Rogal himself too. It will definitely have you looking at their fight in the siege in a new light. Something that after reading this I may go back to reread again, to see if it has me coming away with any more reflections than I did previously. Now, that tease at the start of finding out why Rogal was the Emperor's Praetorian. You just knew the voice was going to be Malcador, and of course it was. I'll admit again I was very surprised it really boiled down to Rogal simply does what he's been told. Whereas some of his brothers do it but in their own way, Rogal does it to the letter. Now, I guess that does make perfect sense. In your head you imagine some grandiose reason, but when you really think about it, that probably is who the Emperor would choose to come to Terra, who he would make his Praetorian, a son who would do whatever he told him to, exactly to the word, and who's not going to bridle against those chains. In that context, it makes perfect sense for Rogal to be the Emperor's Praetorian. I can't really think of many other brothers who would fit the mould. Most certainly not any of the other most trusted sons. The Lion, Russ, Horus, Ferrus. All of them followed the Emperor's words no doubt, but they do so in their own way. And the comment of Dorn being the most trusted son I take with a pinch of salt. We've seen the same for the Lion and for Russ previously. even Guilliman being called the greatest son, and I find it impossible to believe the Emperor trusted any son more than he did Horus. But again, it makes sense in the context of Dorn following the Emperor's words to the letter. All of the others interpret it in their own way. Rogal is simply too practical. The Emperor would and should trust him completely. But anyway, as always everyone, what did you think? Did you enjoy it as much as me? Did you enjoy it more? Or did you enjoy it less? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow, and if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.